Welcome to Legal Innovation Spotlight, the podcast that brings you the latest advancements in legal tech and knowledge management. I'm Ted Theodoropoulos, and I connect with the industry's brightest minds to provide you with valuable insights and actionable takeaways. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Travis, how are you this morning?
Hey, Ted, how's it going?
It's going great. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk about the work that you're doing there at BakerHostetler. I thought it was super interesting. We happened to share a table at ILTA's Evolve conference and that during the award ceremony, and we were both lucky enough to walk away winners. I've been at that awards dinner and not walked away as a winner before, so it feels good when you are. So first, congratulations on the success with that.
Thank you. Congratulations to you as well.
Thank you. And then, I thought, digging in a little bit once you and I had a chance to kind of debrief, and I learned a little bit more about what this project really is all about and how BakerHostetler has built a business around what you guys are doing. I think the audience is going to have a lot of interest learning more about it. So, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit about you. So it looks like you came from healthcare and you're new to the law firm world. Is that accurate?
Slightly, yeah. My background is in actually public health, and I did a lot of work in clinical research over the years. And I sort of pivoted to more research-oriented project management. And then back in 2000, really during the pandemic, I joined the legal department for DaVita as a privacy analyst there for a couple of years, and then moved on to BakerHostetler. So I've been in the legal privacy world now for about 4 years.
Gotcha. And then what are you with IncuBaker or
That's right.
Baker?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell us what IncuBaker is.
Sure. It's basically the research and development division of BakerHostetler. We deal in emerging technologies, everything from automated contract review to what we're going to talk about, the pixel tracking program, things like data mapping, data subject access requests, and things along that nature having to deal with privacy. I'm specifically working in the privacy area of IncuBaker Privacy Services.
Interesting. And how big a venture is this? Like, I don't know, whatever metrics, like employees or, what?
We're not a huge team. No, there's less than 10 of us right now. We're possibly looking to expand, and it's a pretty small condensed team, but we take on a lot of work and get a lot of work done.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, I've seen this model quite a bit in legal, and it's always skunkworks-ish. Like I never really know what these firms do. Seyfarth Lean had a spinoff. Cleary has Cleary X. You guys have IncuBaker. So yeah, it's cool. I'm looking forward to learning about the project. But why don't we kind of start off at basics? So this project that you won the ILTA award for had to do with pixel tracking, but let's just talk about what pixels are, because I've heard of them, mainly through Facebook advertising. I know they kind of drop pixels, but what is pixel tracking and how does it work?
Well, let's start with the very basics of what a pixel is. So a pixel is exactly what it sounds like. It is a tiny, transparent sort of, if you think of like a pixel on your digital TV, and that's essentially the same when you visit a website, but this tiny pixel will contain HTML code, which essentially gathers information and sometimes personal information. And that's where the law angle comes in and what we do. So it's used for analytics and marketing, essentially, is these pixels are. They gather certain information, and the addition of this tracking technology for analytics on a website is usually an add-on feature that you will get with the hosting vendor. And sometimes the marketing team will put it on knowingly. Sometimes it's on there not even knowingly. A lot of times it will come as part of the package, so you're not even paying extra for it. And a lot of times when you get to the legal side of the privacy side of a company, they don't even know it's there. They don't even know it's on there, let alone what it's tracking and what it's collecting. And that'll play into obviously what we're doing with the pixel tracking program and the litigation that we're going to talk about.
We hear a lot about cookies these days, and you see cookie banners. They're so annoying on like every website, and I always just kind of like reject all. I don't know
That's
what
exactly what you should do.
Okay, I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm accomplishing by doing that, but that's what I do.
You're definitely accomplishing something by doing that, because
Okay.
you have, I'm not going to get too into the weeds on cookies, but essentially you have the cookies that are absolutely necessary to make the site function. And then you have all these other cookies that are tracking information and sending information for targeted advertising. You don't need those. And if you don't want those, now with new laws that are online, you do have the ability to reject those. So every time you have that opportunity to reject all as far as cookies goes, you absolutely should do that. Now, sometimes they make it a lot more complicated, and it depends on the state where this website is doing business in. So you'll get some of these banners, instead of reject all, it'll say, well, go to my choices. And then you'll have like 10 things to toggle on and off. And it's a real pain. You're just there to get the information on the website. Where it's different from Pixels, though, is that with Pixels, you don't get that opportunity to opt out of anything. You don't even know they're there. And so you don't have the opportunity to opt out of these tracking, these targeted advertising things that they're collecting from you and transmitting to a third party. You have no say in that whatsoever. And you have not even, most people are not even going to have any knowledge that that's happening in the background, unlike cookies, where at least now, for the most part, you do have certain options.
Wow. So I would imagine, based on the fact that you guys have built a business around this, there's some legal implications. What sort of litigation has arisen from pixel use?
Well, I'm not going to get too in depth on specific cases that the firm is dealing with, or other specific litigation, but I can say this. In the past several years, there's been really an explosion of litigation dealing with pixels and pixel tracking. And a lot of this has come from existing federal or state wiretapping laws that class action suits have cited, and also the Video Privacy Protection Act, which we can get a little more into detail with if you like. But essentially, those have been sort of the big two impetus towards a lot of class action suits we've seen. And really, it's a pretty recent development. I think the first pixel litigation that we've seen, period, was back maybe as of like 2008, and then it was very slow. And then in the last 2 or 3 years, it's really, really picked up and been a big topic. And there's been a lot of mostly of the class action sort of litigation coming forward for pixels. And
Wow.
yeah, it's usually the big players when you're talking about Meta, Facebook, Google, occasionally Bing. Those are the biggest offenders. There's a lot of smaller ones out there, but really the ones that are almost ubiquitously mentioned in litigation are the big ones, like Google and Meta.
Yeah, makes sense. So in the 90s, I owned a collection agency, and that was kind of my first entrepreneurial venture. And the collection laws were very varied from state to state. In certain states, you had to have a license with the state. You had to have a physical office in that state, and everything from that all the way to you could do kind of whatever you want, didn't matter where you were or the client. And there were a whole class of attorneys out there that were pursuing litigation around that, and it was really just kind of a patent troll play. And it made it very difficult. You really had to have a good understanding of all of that lay of the land. But it kind of reminded me of that. Is it the same scenario where you have law firms that are just pursuing this, whether or not there's been any real damage, just looking to seek a monetary win?
Well, I don't want to speak for lawyers or law firms in general in terms of whether they're, using the patent troll method of trying to generate business. But I can see some parallels in what you're talking about. And I'm no expert in the collections realm, but I know laws there have also changed and gotten more complicated, both on the federal and the state level. And what I can say about that is that it's really been a mixed bag with this pixel litigation. You've had a lot of cases thrown out. You've had things overturned by appeals courts. There's been a lot of back and forth as they're trying to figure out, especially when they're trying to apply it to older laws like the VPPA, which at the time they really couldn't envision things like embedded video and video on demand. This was, rose out of video rental cassette history. So trying to apply sort of in modern technological terms is what almost an archaic law has been difficult for the courts, and they're trying to sort through that out. So you've had some success in terms of from the point of view of the of the litigants, and then you've had some setbacks as well. And it's there hasn't been complete clarity, but there definitely has been the rise in litigation, and a lot of these are getting through and getting to trial, and you have seen settlements and things like that. So that's what I can say as far as that goes.
Interesting. And then I assume the firm itself got into this through just advising clients, helping them navigate that legal landscape. How did this Pixel? First of all, what's the official name, or does it have one? This Pixel project that.
Yeah, we just call it pixel tracking program essentially, and that's an excellent question. So, yeah, the firm was definitely seeing a rise in pixel litigation for our clients, and what we had been doing for quite a while is suggesting an expensive third party that would do these pixel tracking scans and get back to the client with what exactly is going on their websites in terms of what pixels are on there, what information is being collected and transmitted. It was mostly, I think, in the beginning, more healthcare-oriented sites. So when you talk about maybe hospital systems or outpatient facilities where they are going to collect a lot of PII and PHI on forms, and the information from that form being sent through a third party, unbeknownst to the user, of course, and this was leading to a lot of litigation. And so we came up with the idea, really, our CIO, Catherine Lowry, came up with the idea of, maybe this would be better to try to do this in-house instead of outsourcing this and recommending this third-party service, which is kind of expensive and actually very expensive. And, it takes a while to come back. If we have a lot of smart people working here, a lot of great people on our IS team and in our privacy team and in IncuBaker. What if we got together and created a tool and were able to essentially do these pixel scans and generate these pixel tracking reports ourselves? And that's exactly what we did.
Interesting. And so is this an automated process, or does somebody have to kind of comb the site manually?
It's a little bit of both. We developed a proprietary tool that will scan the website or websites and give us a certain output, and then my team, or usually it's me, will go through and analyze the results and then compile them into a report so that we can then present to the client a pretty comprehensive report on all the pixels that are running on their site and what information that they might be gathering and sending to third parties that may create risk for them, liability.
Interesting. Yeah. So how much work has arisen in this area for the business?
So a pretty good amount. So the entire thing we were working on mostly in the winter, early spring of last year, and we really got sort of a prototype of it up and running around this time last year. And then in the intervening months, we started sort of letting it be known to clients that we have this tool available. And we had a pretty good flow from that point on. And I don't necessarily know if I can give you hard numbers, but it's been in the double digits in terms of requests and reports that we've actually generated for clients in that time. And so within a year, you're talking about a concept, putting it together, creating the tool in the system, creating the report template, creating the protocol for the scans and the reports, and then being able to generate double digits number of those reports within a 12-month time frame, which I think is pretty good.
Wow. So, and what is the goal? Like, is this a revenue play? Is this a business development play where you can kind of get in your foot in the door with new logos, or are you guys trying to actually generate some bottom line? What's the objective?
Well, I would say all of our programs at IncuBaker are definitely in order to help enhance the business. I think, like I said, my boss is Catherine Lauer, and Pretty Saraswat could answer more to the business side of it in terms of what that looks like. But I can tell you it's definitely a more convenient avenue for our clients to be able to get this information about the pixels on their site, whereas they had to go outside the firm, work with this third party, have create a SAO and a contract with a third party, where now it's able to kept in house. They're already a client. We can already do the work for them. So more than anything, it's a huge, I think, boon for convenience for our clients and a cost savings.
Yeah, I remember when mobile phones came out smartphones, 2008 was the iPhone
Mm-hmm.
ish. And the concept of mobile responsiveness became a big deal like overnight, right? Because people wanted to browse on their phone, and many content management systems. There were a lot of there were a lot of legacy websites out there that it wasn't a good user experience, and there were
Mm-hmm.
consultants out there who would basically go do a media query on a site, figure out if it had a mobile responsive version, and if not, you were a lead, send it over to their business development folks, and they give you a call and say, I mean, it was a great strategy. Like,
Yeah, yeah, the good old days where a lot of people didn't even have mobile sites, so that must have been a great revenue stream just to go out and see what's going on as far as that goes. So yeah, that
yeah,
must have been a great time to be in that business.
no doubt. I mean, and I've seen several other iterations of this. Like, there's one recent one with ADA. So you're supposed to have, there are some ADA requirements. I'm not up to speed on what they are, but they can scan your public facing site and tell whether or not you meet the
Mhm.
criteria. And then again, you're going to get a call from a salesperson. Is this path something you could pursue in that capacity, where you basically scan either not just your existing clients, but I mean, because this is public, it's publicly available. Would that be a way to? It seems like be a good business development approach.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would necessarily stop us from being on the lookout to scan sites. That's certainly not our business model at the moment. We are working within our existing client base. It's an interesting suggestion. It's something I frankly I haven't thought of, and I don't think the team has discussed.
Yeah.
Uh, right now, that's not part of our business model, but it's a very interesting suggestion.
Well, I get a commission if you guys go down.
Keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah. So is the firm planning to expand offerings in this area? Not just with kind of pixel tracking, but I mean, this just sounds like such a good synergy with the legal practice that you have around this. Like, I would imagine there are other practice areas. I mean, because you guys are a decent sized firm. There's probably
Yeah.
other practice areas that have similar synergies, where there's like a tech component that you're probably outsourcing somewhere, or maybe it's not even a tech component, like QSBS, the Qualified Small Business Program. We talked to our lawyers about it. They didn't have expertise. They lobbed us over to a consultant who really understood it. Is there opportunity to expand this in other areas of BakerHostetler's business?
Well, I can tell you this. We are always having these kinds of conversations. We are a very forward thinking sort of group here, and we really gear ourselves towards emerging technologies. So we have, I can't get too into detail, but we have things in the works regarding AI, regarding ESG, and we try to stay on the cutting edge and offer these advanced technical services that we can offer without going to necessarily all these third parties, trying to make sort of a one-stop shop for all the clients' technical and privacy needs. So You definitely tapped into something I think is definitely within the spirit of BakerHostetler and IncuBaker. We are always having those conversations. We are always looking for new avenues and potential verticals. So the short answer is yes. How that pertains to pixel tracking, I think that we are looking to make a concerted effort to bring more awareness to our attorneys in the firm that this is a service that is available to clients directly without having to go outside of the firm and go to a third party. So that's kind of been our focus right now in terms of pixel tracking. In terms of other programs that we're offering, we're always working on stuff. So absolutely.
Yeah. And what is the team makeup? Like, are you guys a bunch of engineers? And you didn't tell us what you do. Why don't we start there? What do you do on the team exactly?
So I'm a legal process engineer, and my focus is on privacy services. So I'm essentially what some places would call a senior privacy analyst or a privacy specialist. That is really my main focus. But I do more than that, and there are some more technical aspects to my job that I do, and we have folks that come from, obviously we have lawyers on the team. We have people with different sorts of technical expertise, people with a lot of privacy experience. It is a pretty diverse group in terms of our background and skill sets. And my focus is within the privacy realm.
Yeah. Legal process engineer can be a bit of a catch-all. I mean, as can many job titles in law firms. So, knowledge management, that means a million different things. Sometimes knowledge management, I would say, like traditional knowledge management functions, I would say, this is me just swagging it, probably less than half of the job is actually that. A lot of it is, sometimes playing business analyst, managing, finding and vetting new technologies. So it sounds like we have clients who have legal process engineers, and yeah, it's a diverse role. It sounds like you're in the same boat. You wear a lot of hats. Is that right?
Absolutely. A lot of different hats. Sometimes it'll be very technical when you get into some of the nuances of a program like OneTrust and the cookie consent model, where you're actually working with some code and things like that. And, other times it's purely on the analytical side and the privacy analytical side and helping clients with that stuff. It can be report generation and writing. Sometimes you got to put on your sales hat and pitch this stuff to potential clients. So there's a lot of different hats as an LPE that we do wear with my fellow LPEs. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys are basically like a small business, right? That's what happens in your subsidiary.
A small business within a larger,
exactly. Yeah, you're
a larger umbrella.
You're intrapreneurs. Well, you had mentioned the VPPA. Tell first of all, what is the VPPA?
So the VPPA is pretty interesting. It's the Video Protection Privacy Act, or the Video Privacy Protection Act. Sometimes I mix those up. But essentially, this was born out of, if you want to go back and you remember your politics, late Reagan era politics, during the Robert Bork Supreme Court nomination hearings, a reporter had gotten a hold of his video rental history. And from what I remember, there was nothing weird or salacious about it. It was just another data point, but I don't want to get into that side of it. But it definitely spooked some people, and it's really not hard to draw some conclusions as to why when you're talking about the ability to call a video store, because for those of us old enough to remember video rental stores, you used to go in and rent your videos, and much like the library, they would log what you rented and when it's due, and they would keep a record of that. And so before this act, pretty much anybody could call and say, hey, what is John Doe's video rental history? What videos has he rented? And I think a lot of politicians or people in power, people in general, kind of said this really isn't information that necessarily should be public and that I want public. So they very actually hastily put a law together. It was passed in 1988, and it essentially covered just that. Now, there was some forward thinking in there, which has been applied I think, obviously, I don't think people could have comprehended at the time the idea of having handheld wireless device where you can pull up any movie or TV show on demand, and watch it in full color. I don't think people were quite comprehending that, but there was some forward thinking and people who understood things a little better, that technology is maybe going to apply to this down the road. So there's some language in there that actually has been applied, and the VPPA actually got a rewrite. I think it was in 2012 to try to address some of this. So what you've actually seen, as we discussed briefly before, is you've seen some litigation arise from the VPPA in modern parlance in terms of streaming videos. I think Netflix has dealt with some of this. Hulu has been hit with some of this regarding VPPA. And of course, how that relates to pixels and pixel tracking is if you are a website or a service that offers video offerings or embedded video, then you can make that connection. Courts haven't been too keen on it if it's just sort of an instructional video or video that has to do with the product. But, there's a lot of gray area there, and there's a lot of calls. There was actually a really good article from George Mason Law calling for a lot of updates in the VPPA to apply it to modern technology. So that's kind of what we've seen and how it applies to some of this pixel litigation that we've been discussing.
Interesting. So it's kind of like HIPAA for your video watching history, is what it sounds like.
That's a pretty good comparison. And then there's also some exclusions that are similar to HIPAA, like you can essentially sign away and allow your history or that history to be transmitted to third parties. You can sign that over if there's things like a court order or a legal reason to get that information. That those are some exceptions in VPPA that sort of parallel certain things in HIPAA. So that's a pretty good comparison.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, my YouTube history, I had two kids, and the stuff that they watch, which is usually utter nonsense, drives the suggestions for my videos. So if you look at my YouTube page, it's gotten better. They're old enough now that I've been able to show them how to do things in their own profile, but it's still. Mm-hmm. So how does this apply with providers like YouTube? I would imagine, Google and Alphabet use this information extensively. If it stays within their four walls, is that fair game?
Well, that's a little more complicated. And again, not speaking from in terms of an attorney or a litigator, I don't want to get, too into the weeds on that. But I can tell you that YouTube does collect information and does collect information via pixels. So I can go as far as to tell you that, to extrapolate that as to what that might mean to potential risk. You could probably piece that together and infer your own hypotheses.
Yeah. So who has exposure to this sort of litigation?
Well, I think potentially in terms of pixels on the whole or VPPA specifically?
VPPA specifically. And then, let's touch on that. And then maybe more broadly, we can talk pixels as well.
Yeah. So, I would say if you have a site or an application where you are offering things like videos on demand, a video catalog or library, and that's not necessarily to say there's risk there, but there could be the potential there depending on the nature of the videos and whether it's a subscription model. It gets very weedy when you get into some of the details of not only the original VPPA or now the VPPA itself, is not a huge, long, sprawling document like HIPAA. HIPAA, you could give yourself a migraine trying to parse through that, which I used to do for a living. So I can tell you firsthand, VPPA is more of a short, compact read, even with some of the changes they've made. So I suggest anyone out there who's concerned or interested in how VPPA might apply to their business to go ahead and read it and read up on some of the articles where VPPA is being applied to current litigation. It's best to really go and inform yourself and read that, because there's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of permutations. A lot of it is going to depend on the nature of the content you're providing, how the user can access that content, etc.
Interesting.
So it really depends.
And then what about pixels? So, like do small businesses need to worry about, are they targets for this, or is it the big conglomerates, the Metas and the Googles and whatnot?
Well, it's not so much that the Google and Meta are really, and that's an interesting point. They're more of the recipients of the data, and what our angle is in terms of trying to help with potential pixel litigation is more of the collection and transmission of the data. So yes, it can be everything from fairly small businesses to larger ones. A lot of our clients have been outside of the healthcare realm, everything from certain consumer products and one thing I can tell you is that in the past few years, a lot of tax preparation services have been facing some issues because of pixels. Because obviously, if you're a tax preparation service, you're collecting a lot of PI. And that actually reminds me of something going back to VPPA. I don't know if the term was coined there, but they did use the term, essentially what we call PII today does appear in the original VPPA, which is pretty interesting. But when you talk about something like a tax preparation service, obviously they're going to collect things like your social security number, your income, your address, your date of birth, all that very sensitive personal information. And a lot of these sites will have pixels running in the background they may not even necessarily be aware of, let alone that all this information is being collected and transmitted to a third party. A lot of businesses, big or small, that employ pixels, it's not for any nefarious reason whatsoever. It's a lot of times it's site analytics, things for their own internal marketing, which isn't too wild or out of bounds. But I would encourage everybody to scan their website and talk to their tech teams and see what kind of pixels are running on their websites.
Are there
because
any?
a lot of them just don't even know.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of scary if you've got this big liability flapping in the wind out there and you don't even know it. Are there any, kind of inexpensive or free tools out there where you can just do a kind of a high level assessment, or do you got to hire somebody like you guys to dig in deep?
Yeah, I'm really not in a position to speak about what other tools you might be able to find out there. I don't think there are very many, though, if any. It's not necessarily a simple thing, to my knowledge. I can definitely tell you that IncuBaker, BakerHostetler offers this as a service. And if you go to our website, BakerHostetler.com, and look up IncuBaker, you will see how you can find out more information and send a request and get in touch with us. In terms of if you are trying to do this on your own, it's a little tricky. It is something that you can probably try to talk to your technical teams about, but a lot of times there's a disconnect between the teams or the people that set up these pixels knowingly or unknowingly and the privacy legal side. We also run into this phenomenon where it's actually the marketing people who are trying to handle the privacy aspects of what's going on with their company. I think there's an inherent conflict of interest there. I don't think that's always the best idea, but I don't tell people how to run their businesses. But, in terms of pixels, it's not necessarily easy to find out. There are ways to do it. And, our firm is one that offers that service directly.
Gotcha. Well, what else do companies need to be need to be thinking about? I mean, are there any kind of preventative measures that that a company can take to just avoid getting into this? Like, is it a matter of more closely vetting, your marketing partners or vendors, or, because typically public facing sites go through a refresh, every whatever X number of years. For us, it's probably 3 years. And,
Mhm.
when we
And a
do,
lot do more frequently. Yeah,
yeah, is there any
absolutely.
preventative steps? Like, is it just the fact of, not selecting any shady WordPress add-ins, or, what are kind of some best practices around that?
Well, it's always excellent advice to vet your third party vendors and know what they're doing, and even try to reach out and talk to them and see what's going on there. A lot of times things are just signed off on, and then things happen, and that's how you get in a situation where you have tracking pixels on your website you're unaware of, and the first time you heard of what a pixel tracker is when you're served with a lawsuit. We've seen that happen. So yeah, vetting your third party vendors is always a good idea. Talking to your technical team and seeing what's on your website is always a good idea. And going out and engaging services like we offer to try to protect yourself is certainly always a good idea. So an overall sense of vigilance, I think, is always helpful in this realm, where especially if you're a site that is going as part of your business model is collecting PII, then you're going to want to be extra careful about protecting yourself.
Do you know if cyber insurance covers this sort of liability?
That's an excellent question. I know a little bit about cyber insurance, but not enough to speak intelligently to whether that would cover it. I can tell you that in a lot of my reading and research and putting this together, that hasn't really come up a lot. So I don't think that's a big part of this at this stage, but I could be mistaken. I'm not an expert on that.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be a great, if if this is fairly, and maybe that's a better question. How niche are these types of cases? Like, is this a widespread that's happening all over the place, or is it fairly narrowly focused? Just what's the magnitude of
Yeah.
this?
Well, like I said, there's been this explosion in litigation around pixels. So I would say at this point, it's pretty widespread. If everything from if you're like I said, a tax preparer website, or what we've seen, if you're a healthcare industry website where you're going to have web forms that are collecting a lot of PII and PHI, and even if you're a restaurant that has takeout order service, you're going to be collecting a certain measure of PI, and that information could be transmitted to third parties without your knowledge. So I would say across the spectrum, really, this I don't think anybody is necessarily unaffected by the possibility of pixels gathering information that their users are not aware of and may run afoul of certain laws.
And is there an act or something like GDPR or some piece of legislation that's the basis for these lawsuits? What is the where do these defendants run afoul of the law in these cases?
Well, that's where it gets tricky and complicated, right? You like with anything else concerning privacy, there is not one blanket national law. At least in Europe, you do have GDPR, which is sort of more comprehensive to those countries. In terms of the United States, a lot of people are trying to model everything after CCPA, the California law, and that has certain provisions in it that have guided certain pixel tracking litigation. Now you have laws that are popping up in places like Vermont, Utah, Colorado. We just passed ours last year. I'm a resident of Colorado, so that one has been present. So this is why it's an excellent point, an excellent transition to the idea that a lot of businesses do employ us, lawyers, law firms, to try to parse this out for them, because it's very tricky. You have essentially a patchwork of state law. We may, in the next couple of years, depending how things unfold politically, see some sort of national law which clarifies a lot of this for everything, including something like pixel tracking. But for now, you have litigation that comes about, like I said, could be from VPPA, could be from certain wiretapping laws, both at the federal level and at the state level. Those are kind of the two big ones that you see a lot. And then from different provisions within these individual state laws, which is where it gets tricky. So you have to ask yourself, am I doing business in California? Do I have potential clients in California, potential customers in Colorado, potential customers in Virginia, where another privacy law was just passed? So it can become very daunting trying to figure out this patchwork. There's no simple answer or solution to it. It can essentially come at you from a lot of different angles in a lot of different ways.
Wow. And how big are these awards? I mean, are these like tens of millions, or and do they ever make it to court, or they mostly settle out?
Some do make it to court, some get settled out. So the VPPA itself is, I think it's like $2,500 per infraction, but that doesn't count sort of like damages where you can, go for, damage to reputation and that sort of harm. It's, of course, I'm not going to get into the legal weeds. It can be very hard to prove harm, in that case. But yeah, I mean, these firms aren't taking on these big class action suits because, it's for peanuts. So there's definitely some real money behind it, or we wouldn't have seen this explosion in litigation. And, that could be a product of, well, you're counting all of these as these individual infractions, whereas in 1988, it would have been, per infraction, pretty easy to parse out. Now it gets more complicated when you're trying to add up the money. But obviously, the money's got to be pretty good if we're seeing as much litigation as we are.
Yeah, especially if these law firms are taking these cases on contingency. Yeah, the awards have to be significant enough to make that pursuit worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Well, this is great stuff, man. I love to hear about new innovative, which hence the podcast, new innovative ways in which law firms are solving technical challenges or creating new businesses. Yeah, man, kudos to you guys for, thinking outside the box and building something there that was, I mean, it's really kind of the award to win at ILTA. So congratulations on that. And yeah, we look forward to hearing more as you guys come up with new innovative ideas.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we do. IncuBaker, we're always thinking of new innovative ways to address our clients' needs. And from my angle for privacy, with all the privacy stuff, we're obviously kept very busy. And as these state and hopefully at some point national privacy laws continue to blossom up, we're going to be offering a lot of these different services going forward.
And if you mentioned a website, a URL, but just to kind of state that again, if somebody wants to find out more about your services, how do they get in touch?
Well, you can Google IncuBaker. It's a sort of one word, IncuBaker, and that should take you to the page within the BakerHostetler website. Otherwise, if you go to BakerHostetler.com, there will be a link there for IncuBaker and our services that you can look up or via the search feature and find out more about us.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time to tell us about it, and we hopefully some folks who need your stuff will come your way as a result of this.
Yeah, that would be great. I really appreciate it. It was great to meet you, Ted. It was a great time hanging out at the ILTA Awards, and hopefully we'll both be back there again soon.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, take care, Travis.
You too. Thanks, Ted.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Legal Innovation Spotlight. If you found value in this chat, hit the subscribe button to be notified when we release new episodes. We'd also really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate us and leave us a review wherever you're listening right now. Your feedback helps us provide you with top-notch content. Want to dive deeper into the world of legal innovation? Connect with us online at getinfo-.com, where you'll find additional resources and articles. You can also follow us on social media at getinfo- to stay updated on the latest news and insights in the field of legal tech and knowledge management. Once again, thank you for joining us today on Legal Innovation Spotlight, a fireside chat series hosted by InfoDash.